Let's move on now. There is an uneasy calm on the streets of Colombo today after Sri Lanka saw unprecedented violence across the length and breadth of the country on Monday, following, of course, the resignation of Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa. Heavily armed troops evacuated the outgoing Sri Lankan Prime Minister from his official residence in Colombo after thousands of protesters reportedly breached the main gate. A pre-dawn operation by the army helped to safely evacuate Mahinda and his family. But the resignation is the latest concession made by the Rajapaksas in the face of sustained anger and protests. Other members of the Rajapaksa family who previously held seats in the government have all stepped down. The only one remaining is Gotabaya Rajapaksa, who is the current president, and has repeatedly said that he will not resign despite the clarion call of Gota go home by protesters. He now has widespread powers and command over the security forces of the country. Meanwhile, an Air Force helicopter allegedly carrying some members of the Rajapaksa family was seen taking off from the police park grounds in Colombo this morning. People gathered outside a naval base in Trincomalee, a port city in the northeast coast of Sri Lanka, where they suspect that former Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa and his family are currently in. Opposition parties in the country are now calling for the arrest of Mahinda Rajapaksa for inciting violence against peaceful anti-government protesters on Monday. That has now claimed at least 8 lives and injured around 200.
මේ මිනේච්ඡත්වයට රාජපක්ෂ ජනාධිපතිවරයා රාජපක්ෂ අගමැතිවරයා ප්‍රමුඛ මේ ආණ්ඩුවට සම්බන්ධ සියලුම දෙනා වග කියන්නට ඕන. මේක සැලසුම් සහගත දෙයක්. මේක හිතාමතා කරපු දෙයක්. මේක රාජ්‍ය මිලේච්ඡත්වයේ රාජ්‍ය ත්‍රස්තවාදයේ දේශපාලන ත්‍රස්තවාදයේ ක්‍රියාත්මක කරපු මේවුමක්. ඒ නිසා මේ දෙයට රාජපක්ෂවරු වගකිව යුතුමයි.
Monday's violence was widespread and saw protesters set fire to all 3 houses of the outgoing Prime Minister. Homes of other Sri Lankan ministers were also torched and vandalized, as were buses and public property. The violence came to a head after protests spread across the country, drawing people across ethnicities, religions and classes. Sri Lanka is currently reeling under its worst economic crisis since independence. The country has suffered months of blackouts and a dire shortage of food and fuel. This has triggered massive anti-government protests across the country. For more insights into the crisis currently unfolding in Sri Lanka, joining us live now from Colombo on this broadcast is Prasad Velikumbura, who is a political and social activist. Thanks so much for joining us. I want to begin by asking you what's happening on the streets of Colombo today after the mayhem that we saw yesterday.
Today, Colombo streets looks very calm. There are a lot of military activity in the streets. When I came from Gotago government to my home, I have been stopped by 3 military checkpoints with about 10 people in each, and they were questioning where I was going and from where I was coming. It kind of looked like a military state.
Right.
I mean, it was like that when LTT was fighting a civil war. We are fighting with the civil war with LTT, but right now it exactly looked like that.
Yeah, you're saying,
there are
sir, that
military everywhere.
You're saying Sri Lanka currently is looking like a military state, and that brings me to my next question. Reports say that the army has evacuated the outgoing Prime Minister and his family. We saw terrifying scenes yesterday. The economic crisis has led now to a massive political crisis, violence on the streets. What lies ahead? Who's governing Sri Lanka at the moment?
Currently, President Gotabaya Rajapaksa is trying to govern the country, but there's no cabinet. Parliament is adjourned in 17th, so the only person that is governing the country is Gotabaya Rajapaksa, and he is a military person, ex-military, and it looks like it that he is heavily depending on the military for maintaining the peace. That's why he have deployed. This has never happened before since war has ended, where military has overtaken the keeping the peace in the country.
Right.
Especially in Colombo area, it's heavily fortified with the military.
You're saying Colombo, of course, is heavily fortified. Just a final question there. The opposition parties are now calling for arresting the outgoing Prime Minister. How likely is it that that may happen?
I'm not really sure that will happen, but that should be happen, because I was there at the protest when everything broke loose. The protesters were peacefully protesting for 30 days, and those people who came to attack Gotagogama village, which is the main protest site, came from the Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa's official residence. They have been called into Mahinda Rajapaksa's official residence for a meeting, and they have been provoked, and they have been sent out to attack protesters, anti-government protesters. And that is actually a crime, and he needs to be arrested. But you know how law can, I mean, there's a huge gap between what should happen and what is happening in countries like ours.
Thank you so much for speaking to us on Beyond. Right. Please finish. Right.
Yeah. But I think he should be arrested for all the atrocities he has done, and for what happened yesterday, all the riots and everything, how he provoked the riots all around the country.
All right. Thank you so much for speaking to us at WION World is One. Thanks for all those on-ground insights. WION World is One is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news updates on the move.